Hi, my name is Pete Harbison. I'm the program coordinator for the Student Historian program, and we also run the Illinois History Fair. The 2016 National History Day theme is Exploration, Encounter, and Exchange in History. We're here in the plaza at the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Museum, and I thought I'd talk to the Lincoln family about some possible topics on that theme of exploration, encounter, and in history. Well, the Lincolns aren't very talkative today, but I do know some historians over at the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library that might shed some light on some good topics on the 2016 theme of exploration, encounter, and exchange in history. So let's go on over to the library and talk to some historians. Follow me. Well, I found an historian. We're in the reading room at the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library, and I'm with historian Sam Wheeler. And Sam, we're going to talk a little bit about the National History Day theme, and this year it is Exploration, Encounter, and Exchange in History. Now in Illinois, we have the kids do an Illinois topic. We're funded by the taxpayers, we're proud of our state history, and we can always find some Illinois topics that fit into this broad theme. And once again, this year it is Exploration, Encounter, and Exchange in History. Do you have any ideas about topics kids might do?
Absolutely. Illinois history is filled with amazing topics, from Native Americans and European settlement in the Illinois country to the roles that women and immigrants, laborers, and the role technology played in making Illinois one of the premier states in America.
So it's not hard to find an Illinois topic. And a great place to come and find a topic after you can think about a topic is the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library. And we have a wonderful collection in this library that kids can access. Do you want to talk a little bit about the library?
I'm glad that you brought us down here into the reading room of the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library, because if you're working on a topic on virtually anything related to Illinois history, this is the place to be. Now, of course, we have a phenomenal collection of material related to Abraham Lincoln, his life and times, the mid-19th century, and the Civil War. But I wonder if a lot of folks know that we have the world's finest collection of Illinois newspapers on microfilm. We have a manuscripts department. You can read Civil War diaries from soldiers in the field. You can read the papers of governors and senators, but you can also read just letters from everyday folks, and they'll tell us what life in Illinois was like 50 years ago, 100 years ago, or even 200 years ago. This is a phenomenal place to do research, no matter what your topic is in Illinois history.
Indeed. When the student historian program started back in the late 1940s, early 1950s, the idea was to get kids to use primary sources. And primary sources are definitely the building blocks of telling a story. So let's just talk a little bit about the primary sources we have here.
So again, we're in the reading room. If folks come here on a research trip, they can come down here into the reading room and they can access any number of databases, ProQuest being one of them, but you can also access great databases like Ancestry, for instance, filled full of primary documents, as you know. Yeah. Another great resource that we have here in the library as far as primary documents go, we have an audio-visual collection upstairs. We have 400,000 photographs, pieces of original artwork, advertisements that appeared in newspapers, a great way to bring some color, bring some life to any research topic you might imagine.
So this is a great place to do research. When you pick your topic, you're welcome to come to the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and look for some primary sources, because they're really going to help you tell your story. So thanks, Sam.
My pleasure, Pete.
I thought I'd ask a couple of my friends about topics on exploration, encounter, and exchange in history. And so I've invited Michelle Poe.
Yes, Michelle Poe. I'm the Director of Education here at the ALPLM.
And do you have any ideas?
I do. When I think of exploration, encounter, and exchange, one of the things that comes to mind for Illinois is the Great Migration. The Great Migration was when African Americans were leaving the South and they were moving to big cities. They were going to New York and Pittsburgh and Detroit, but they were also coming to Chicago and areas throughout Illinois. And you've probably heard of Harlem and something called the Harlem Renaissance. In Illinois, the neighborhood in Chicago, the neighborhood that people moved to was called Bronzeville. And you've got this great history there of jazz and blues and art and all of these different pieces of culture coming into play.
So if a student's interested in music, then they could maybe talk about jazz and explore that kind of thing, which was a big part of the Chicago history.
Absolutely.
Great idea. Genevieve?
I'm Genevieve KAPLAN, and I work in the education department at the museum. And one of the things that I love to think about with the exploration topic is exploring your own history, your town's history, your family's history. Genealogy is a really fun thing to look at.
And one of the things that you could delve into is what your relatives encountered when they moved to the United States. And a great way to do family history, of course, is to maybe do oral history interviews with family members, look at some of your family's letters if they're available. So it's a great way to find primary sources when you're doing family history.
Absolutely, and those family photographs with stories that all of your parents and grandparents tell all the time, those family gatherings are a great way to really help get you started on your research.
Well, thanks a lot. Those are great ideas.
Sure.
Well, we're still in the reading room at the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library, and I've called on another historian to give us some ideas for Illinois history topics on exploration, encounter, and exchange in history. I'm here with Dr. Mark DEPUE. He's an oral historian. And Mark, do you have any ideas for the kids on an Illinois topic that relates to the National History Day theme?
Pete, I know I've told you this before, but I think I've got just about the neatest job here because I get to talk to people about their own personal experiences. And what I would recommend for any students out there especially, it's not hard at all just to sit down and ask your parents, or better yet, get a hold of your grandparents and ask them what it was like when they were growing up. And something that you could relate to in a very direct way, and you'll find out very quickly just how different life was for your grandparents, especially if they were growing up in the 40s or the 50s or the 60s, even in that time frame. They'll almost always say it was a simpler time. A lot of people who grew up in the 50s will tell you that was the time to really grow up as a young kid in the United States. You'll learn a lot, you'll be able to connect in a different way, and I think you'll really enjoy it. And you've got the technology at your fingertips to do this, both audio and especially video, and you'll cherish that 20 or 30 or 40 years later. I know that seems like eons from now, but it'll be part of the family lore that needs to continue on. So that's what I would encourage people to do.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, since we're in the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library, I thought we'd find a Lincoln scholar, and I did find one. I'm with Dr. James Cornelius. He is the curator of the Lincoln Collection, and I'm going to ask him a question about the National History Day theme and maybe a Lincoln-related topic.
All right. Well, thank you, Pete. Lincoln is a good person to study, and his era for this theme of encounter, exploration, exchange, in any order there. Because Lincoln, though he was not the first person in the state of European extraction, he was pretty early with his family, and he saw a little bit of everything. He saw Native Americans, he saw free African Americans, he saw enslaved African Americans in the course of his life, including in Illinois. And a lot of his career involved working out the new modes of exchange of goods between all these people. Cash, goods, warfare sometimes, which is certainly a form of exchange. And he was someone, I guess you'd say, who straddles that boundary, that era from pre-statehood to statehood to the beginnings of the industrial power that Illinois became. He worked with, as an attorney, he worked with banks, he worked with small farmers, he worked with people who ran a horse cart business, people fighting about their property lines, guardianship of children, divorce cases, murder cases, freed slaves cases, nearly everything you can think of. The railroads, of course. This is what he's partly famous for, but he was working as many times for law clients suing the railroads as he was working for the railroads with suits against others. And some of his work took him beyond the boundaries of Illinois too. Some St. Louis firms, some other out-of-state work. He was in Chicago, he was all the way down to Gallatin County, he was in Mount Vernon, he was in Springfield obviously a lot of the time. He was in Quincy, Bloomington, Ottawa, Galesburg, Charleston, Urbana. He's all over the map. He's a fascinating figure.
Indeed he is, and thank you very much.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Pete.
We've been talking to some historians about the National History Day theme, and we actually have a school doing research today in the library. And I thought I would ask the teacher from Trinity Lutheran School here in Springfield, Kimberly GARVUE, about what kind of topics her kids select.
The first place that they start is we've got a Trinity member that actually has written a book about all different areas and history and things that have happened in Illinois, most specifically in Springfield, which usually then sparks conversation going home among parents and grandparents, and they start talking about their history, especially ones that have lived in Springfield for a number of years, or if they've got family in the area. I know that is last year we had a student that chose to do the Chicago Expo. Get really focused in on like the Ferris wheel and the creation of all those different things that came out of that. And it started from a conversation he had with his grandparents about remembering, they had some stuff at home. And it was a great opportunity. He sat down with his grandfather and they spent an immense amount of time talking about what Chicago used to look like, the neighborhoods, him walking, things that he remembers his dad talking about. We had another girl that chose to talk about Whitehall and had family that lived down there and all the memorials that they would pass, and thought, oh, this is a girl, this would be something great for, until she was down with visiting with cousins, and then walked the streets of Whitehall and went out to where Anne would have lived, and where what the area would look like. And so really it comes from a variety of different places. Sometimes it's just something that they're reading through and it catches their eye.
You find when kids get to pick the topic that they kind of take ownership of it. Another thing that's good about local history is that there's a lot of good primary sources available,
Very
whether
much
it's
so.
interviewing people or possibly newspaper sources. So
It's a lot easier to find the information when you can get to the place, you can get to the town, or you can get to the place, you can get whether it's pictures or pamphlets from the day, or being able to get that primary source information. When you live here and you can walk it, it's amazing that primary sources become much more accessible, and nothing speaks history as getting a firsthand account of somebody's.
And I think it's a little bit more tangible, important to the kids when it's something that have impacted their own community.
Very much so. They can, when it hits whether it's their town of Springfield or it's their home, being with their family has got a connection to it, then it makes it so much more important. And the level of research that they're willing to do is on such a much higher level than if I just gave them a topic. Then it would just be me assigning something arbitrary, and it would just be a regular day for them. This is making history come alive because it means something to them. They spend months working on this topic, so they need to have a love for it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I hope our discussions with our historians and educators have given you something to think about as you decide to choose a topic for your Illinois History Day project. The most important thing is for you to find something that you're interested in. That way you'll take ownership and you'll have fun doing your research. I'm Pete Harbison. I'm the coordinator for the Student Historian Program. Thank you.